What's good guys, and this is the HTC One M7. To a lot of people, the best smartphone the company has ever made. So let's see what makes it so special and how the phone took home almost perfect review scores. Unusually, the package is made primarily from plastic, which is very rare but solid, and it's free from the creases and damage we normally see on cardboard boxes. The highlights of the phone include BlinkFeed, which is like a more general form of the newsfeed you might find on Facebook. We've of course got Boom Sound, which is, I'd say, the crowning jewel of the HTC One M7, but we'll come back onto this. And of course, we've got HTC Zoe, which you probably haven't heard of in a while, mostly because no one really cared about it. The phone is on top, and under this we've got two compartments. The left hand side houses loads of paper, and the right side has the micro USB cable and charger. But also these were at the time, and even today, some of the best sounding earphones included in a phone box. And it's also nice to see they've got some sort of visual identity and they're not just one plain color with no branding. Alright, then we've got the phone, and as you can probably tell, this is the rare blue color variant over here. And it's not just a solid smartphone, it is a visual masterpiece. Alright, so back in March 2013 when this phone was released, it came with some truly standout aspects to it, which we've got to talk about. But just before that, we need to take a look at the Ultra Pixel camera. This was HTC's way of selling the 4 megapixel sensor that they placed on the HTC One M7. The term Ultra Pixel is actually describing how the huge sensor they put inside this phone, combined with the lower megapixel count, actually allows it to capture up to 300% more light than competing 13 megapixel cameras. And having less megapixels, whilst it sounds counterintuitive, does have some noticeable benefits. You can snap photos faster, ones that take up a lower file size and are less likely to be compressed when you're using other programs or sending them, and also this does better in low light. You're probably curious to see the results, so on the left hand side we've got the Galaxy Note 2, which was Samsung's latest phone at the time this one was launched, and on the right is the HTC One. And from this distance the lower megapixel count on the HTC is not so apparent, but the size of the sensor truly is. There is a certain level of sharpness achieved by the amount of light this is capturing that the Samsung is just not keeping up with. Upon zooming in, HTC's detail is on the lower side, but not by as much as you'd expect given the numbers. I really do think this phone has the foundations of a very strong camera, and it's kind of a shame that HTC ditched the Ultra Pixel idea rather than trying to refine it. Alright, so the HTC One M7 is crafted out of one aluminium unibody, which truly set the precedent for smartphones in the future. The body has zero flexing, zero creaking, and also extremely strong drop and scratch resistance. Now it is chunky, don't get me wrong, but it's not as heavy as you'd expect, and the matte finish resists fingerprints and keeps it fairly easy to grip. Oh yeah, and it's visually stunning. Granted, I wouldn't swap my 2017 Galaxy Note 8 out for it, but some of the elements of this design are undoubtedly yet to be beaten, and if HTC could have refined this concept into something with a more modern screen-to-body ratio and thickness, this phone could have been a winner. The screen too received applause all the way around. The Super LCD 3 technology behind it produced bright natural colors, and with a sharp 1080p resolution combined with a fairly small 4.7-inch display, this had pixel density off the charts. It does still have pretty large bezels, meaning it is still hard to use with one hand. Definitely an area that phones have improved on since, with their narrower sides and better ergonomics. But when you combine this display with these speakers, the HTC One M7 was pretty much the king when it came to video. Audio is so immersive, it brings a smile to your face even today, and it's still clearer than my 2017 dual speaker Pixel 2 XL. This phone was pretty much the start of the dual speaker era, and it's the first of its kind, but ironically, still one of the better ones. Boom Sound sounds like a gimmicky marketing term, but what it does do is transformative. The aspect which is perhaps a little bit more gimmicky and a little bit harder to notice was the Beats audio integration. So this phone came out in a time when Beats were the headphones to buy, everyone was wearing them on the streets, and so by slapping that brand name on, I guess they must have drawn a lot of the audio enthusiasts in. But this was more of a software integration, it was simply a tuning of the speakers to emphasize the bass. And it works, it sounds good, but it's not exactly a hardware feat. The Snapdragon 600 is the chip that powers this phone, which was pretty good at the time, but I remember being very disappointed that it missed out on the highest end Snapdragon 800. And it's impressive to see how far processing power has come since 2013. The modern equivalent of the 600 is between 3 to 4 times more powerful, namely the Snapdragon 660. Not to say the UI isn't fast, because it is, but it doesn't feel quite as responsive to your touch. The HTC One M7 won't quite cut it in terms of tough 3D games, and loading screens stay around for a little bit longer. Multitasking too somewhat suffers, with only 2 gigs of RAM here. The One M7 was a real turning point for HTC's Sense UI. Now based off Android 5.0 Lollipop, it is really easy to fall in love with. The focus is on being light, on being fast, a stark contrast to Samsung's TouchWiz or even most other smartphone skins at the time. And Blink Feed is genuinely something you find yourself using. This newsfeed-like list is not something that's new technology, but it's good implementation of existing tech. And sometimes that's enough. The camera software suite too is robust. It's got face detection, object removal, and automatic highlight reels, usually stuff you find in third-party applications. And that brings us on to HTC's Zoe, which is a 3-second live photo effectively, where 12 frames are captured. And it's a cool idea, and combined with the fast shutter speed of the camera, as well as the low amount of blur the end photos come out with, lets you do some cool stuff. But it's just not practical enough. These small size photos end up becoming small videos, so the limited space you have on your phone, which is non-expandable, is now getting filled very quickly. And it feels like one of those things you'll show your friends, and play around with if you have 5 minutes, but not something you start using by default. Aside from this, you'll notice hardware capacitive keys, plus a HTC logo that kind of looks like it's just been used to fill some space. You combine that black bar with the large chin on the top and the bottom of the phone, which are accommodating the stereo speakers. You can kind of see why some people were upset about wasted space on the phone. That was one of the very few complaints this device received when it was launched. It's just a little bit longer than perhaps it needs to be. But this kind of leads on to the conclusion of this video, the reason why we're kind of making it. This is a time when HTC was absolutely at their peak. They were building fast, beautiful phones that genuinely had a strong visual identity of their own. This was not a perfect phone, but it was certainly an innovative one. This was the first time we'd seen ultra-pixel technology. The software had been completely overdone. This is the first appearance of stereo speakers on a phone in quite some time, and the screen was really well regarded. And so when we look back to 2013, the golden year when HTC released this phone, it's kind of sad, because the company is really not doing well in the smartphone market now, and perhaps if they'd actually taken the successes of this phone, improved on the flaws, they could be in a completely different position now. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button down below if you did. That would really help me out. With that being said, my name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'm signing out.